So, I'm here to talk to you about Elizabethan England, everything I know about it, so that we can read our play, Romeo and Juliet, and it will make more sense. This picture of Shakespeare here is called the Cobb Portrait, and someone was so lucky that they had this in their attic, and no one really thought it was Shakespeare. It's tiny, by the way. These little portraits are really small, like the Mona Lisa is tiny. You'd think it's this great big, but everyone's lined up for this portrait that's like about yay big. But anyway, someone had this in their attic, and it turned out to be a priceless antique because it is the oldest. Well, it's not the oldest picture of Shakespeare because I believe there's like carvings of him in metalwork, but this is a picture of him as he's like in his late 40s, and I think he lived to be 52. But what we have here is actual proof that he was able to move throughout society. And sorry, I'm making a video and I told him that they forgot. He was able to move throughout the ranks of society. And why is that such a big deal? Well, this thing is called a ruff, RUFF, or an Elizabethan collar. And the one that he's wearing in this picture is significant because it's Italian lace. And so it would be very expensive. And the son of a glove maker, that sounds like an insult. You son of a glove maker. Anyways, the son of a glove maker that only made it to 8th grade. How would he be able to afford such a luxury? But since he was very wealthy at the end of his life because of his plays, he's able to what? Because I was just brainstorming. That's what I do. I'm sorry. We do, because we want you to know we're watching, but we're also thinking. Sorry. So we have this Italian lace ruff. We have an English gentleman. You wish you found that in your attic, and you were really wealthy. P.S. Okay, if I'm going to have a portrait commissioned of myself, I would not be post-baby. I would be before, when I had side abs and great hair and beautiful skin, right? Not now. So I would say, if this is the BARD, this is William Shakespeare, he's going to commission someone to make him look great, just like all the propaganda. Like I have a picture of Napoleon crossing the Alps on one of my magnets. He has great hair. He's on a horse. He looks tall, right? He looks svelte. But in any time you're looking at a portrait, even the ancient Egyptians, they would have the pharaohs had themselves looking very slim and powerful, but they weren't. Science tells us they ate things like honey, bread, wine. These are all terrible for your waistline. So they would have been fat. And we know that from looking at their teeth. Like they had periodontal disease. It was just a mess. So anytime you're looking at a portrait of someone like Queen Elizabeth or whoever, obviously they paid for the portrait to be made, so it will be photoshopped. Look, they will be looking great for history. So it's propaganda. Okay, so right here, this is Queen Elizabeth, and this is her at her coronation. I don't know, I think she was like 14 years old. She's the epitome of beauty during the Renaissance. So that's what's playing right now, Renaissance music. The epitome of beauty was red hair, bright red hair, pale skin. And the ladies of this time would want the most pale skin, and they would even paint on things like veins, so that they look so pale. Why was that beautiful? Because Queen Elizabeth was like their queen, their female monarch, and so everyone wanted to look like her. And if you go to the gym, everybody's trying to get tan, and they're trying to get their glutes, they're trying to flex those glutes. And why? Because famous people now are people like the Kardashians, who kind of define beauty standards right now. So, okay, so she's the greatest monarch in English history. You guys can read this slide already. She became queen in 1558. So the Italian Renaissance was around 1400 in Italy, but in the 1500s, this is when it started to catch on in England. And believe me, the monarchs were probably a little terrified, because the church started losing power and the people started gaining the power. But it was a time of okay, the Middle Ages was a time of intellectual stagnation. Like, you can imagine if the church is in power, um, it's you know you're not trying to lose your power, but I'd say, like, sorry, people keep trying to come up and talk to me, and I lose my train of thought. Okay, so during this time, they're not interested in science, right? They're interested in what the church is telling them to do. So that becomes kind of a threat a little bit to the monarchy. Because if you're destined by God to be a monarch, then, you know, you're worried that the people are going to have questions. Okay, so she was also known as a virgin queen. We don't really know that fact, but she did remain celibate, I think, for a lot of her life, and did not choose a king. But she would use it to her advantage, like, oh, maybe I'll come over here and marry the prince of this nation. Nope, just kidding. So she used it as, like, um powerful manipulation. And she is credited with the defeat of the Spanish Armada in 1588. And she is a patron of the arts. That means that she loved plays and music. And this is her father, King Henry. Now, he was really great looking in his younger days, but he did have a jousting accident. And some of our groups are going to tell us about jousting, but it is so bad that it affected his leg. And then he wasn't well, so he sat down a lot while he was getting better. And then he got something called gout, which is not what you want to get. It's by eating rich foods and everything. And I've actually been to King Henry's palace, and he had several kitchens. I know you can't believe it by looking at him, but he had like a fudge kitchen. He was living the life. By the way, the palace was really depressing. Like, it was all brick, and I can't imagine living there. The gardens were beautiful, but it was much colder in England back then. That's what we've been told by scholars. And they say they had like a 50-inch waist. I don't know if that's true or not, but fans of King Henry, you know this. He had, I think, 6 or 7 wives. And there's a saying, I'm going to try to remember it. It's divorced, beheaded, died, divorced, beheaded, survived. So that's how you remember his wives. So he beheaded Anne Boleyn. And who is the other one he beheaded? It was the one after the one that he married. Oh, I can't remember, but you can look it up if you want to. King Henry VIII and his wives, if that's what you want to look up. Okay, this is a picture of Queen Elizabeth. This one's really important. So this is her Italian lace ruff. This is going to be important when we look at costumes. She would definitely be wearing a wig. Probably would wear taffeta because, according to my sources, it kept away the fleas. This is the Spanish Armada before. This is the Spanish Armada after. She's credited with the defeat. She would be wearing whalebone corset. Her skirt would go very wide, and then it would be really short. I found out that shoes in that time period were all one size. Well, they're not all one size. There was not a left shoe and there was not a right shoe. They were both the same. This crown in the background was signifying her power, like, she's the man, she's powerful. Her hand on the globe signifies world domination. I assume this is another tribute to her defeat on the seas, but also, like, through virginity and power here. And this would have been, like, encrusted with pearls and other precious gems. And when I was in Spain, we went through the Spanish palace, and we found out that the wigs that they would wear would have an extra pocket in them, so that the nobility and whoever would put pieces of, like, bacon and meat in the wig pockets, so that the fleas and the lice would eat off of the bacon and not their heads. So again, they didn't take baths, they didn't have indoor plumbing. And it is said that Queen Elizabeth probably bathed only once in her life, although they don't really know. But most of the time they would bathe in May, and that was wedding season. And if you would bathe, you would usually bathe after everyone in your household that was older than you would bathe. So it would be like, I don't know, if I was younger, I would be like the third to bathe in the water because my mom and dad, and then my two sisters would get after me. Oh, so glad. We just be thankful you have something called a shower. Okay, going on. Let me move this over here. So this is like what a lady would wear. I have to look up these words. So one of these is called a hupalande. Um, so this would be like a head covering that a woman would wear. It actually looks like, like that. And so I'm not quite sure if it just depended on what you felt like that day to wear. But she has the ruff, right? She has peacock feathers all over her. In one of the sources I read, peacocks were seen as bad luck, but I know they did eat them for weddings and stuff like that. It's probably more for ornamentation rather than taste. So, also women would wear, tight fitting things, and then the expanse of their balloony sleeves. Another thing is they would have like a split in their skirts. And from one of my sources, I found this out. This is not the source I found it out, but I kind of wanted to show you. They would have a split in their skirt. And why? They said that, my source said that it came from the peasants. The peasants were only allowed by law to wear one color, but they were rebels. They were fashion rebels, which I love. So they would split their skirt and so they would show another color underneath. But then if someone of upper class walked by, they could fix it really quickly. But this became so popular in sleeves and dresses and even shoes, apparently. And so I guess I could liken this to today's like holy jeans, like covering up something within showing something underneath it. And has that been an issue in the past? Yeah. I know a lot of teachers that would send kids down for like holes in their jeans above their knees, and they got crazy about it. But I just think it's cool, and it's just a remnant of the Renaissance. So just maybe write a few of these things down. The upper class were allowed to wear gold and gold tissue. It was very expensive. They would wear rich jewels. They would wear satin and, like I said, silk, taffeta. Um, and I'll get to the men's clothes because that's really important. But since they had a ruff around the neck, their hair would have to be like piled up higher. Okay, next slide is the men. Okay, so they would wear a waist-long jacket. It was called a doublet, so I assume this is a doublet here. They would wear a hip-length jacket, sometimes called a jerkin. I know. They would wear something called a codpiece because it was like meant to cover manly parts because they would wear really tight tights. I hate wearing tights. Man, you're so lucky. Because they fall down and it's uncomfortable. The men would wear a girdle, so they would also wear wigs. And this is an example of a Renaissance hat. They would have fancy feathers in them and everything. And then men would wear beards. That was the style. Okay. And in this slide, I'll move myself down. Apparently, they want us to be in the videos too. So makeup was important because they say that Queen Elizabeth wore the makeup to cover up her smallpox scars from when she was young. I think I have a slide about smallpox. Is it? There's a picture of it. But she had blemishes left over from that, so she would cover her skin with like something called ceruse, which had vinegar but also lead in it. So this would make her skin more terrible. So she'd put more makeup on to cover it up. I don't know if you've ever had acne, but the more makeup you put on to cover it up, I think the more it breaks out, So, but that became the style, So this was beauty: fair hair, fair eyes, curly and frizzy red hair. That was more beautiful, and then crimson lips and cheeks. And some of these pigments were made with something called belladonna, which was poisonous. Um, but you can actually still put like egg whites and some other things on your face, and apparently it makes it nice and smooth. But I wouldn't do that. I would just go to Ulta or Sephora and treat myself, or just go to CVS and get the get the good stuff, okay? And then it says also, so women would swallow ash and candles and rocks sometimes to achieve that ghostly pallor that was beautiful. And you just think of some of the things that people do for beauty these days. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. They go under the knife and ugh, to get skinnier, and it's just crazy. Also, if you had really they would nearly pluck their eyebrows out or do that so they could draw on their eyebrows higher, and a big forehead was seen as beautiful, which would offend my fifth period class. They're offended by 5 heads. They don't call them foreheads. And then tiny lips and wigs were popular. Okay. So hopefully you saw all these pictures here. And okay, here is a quote. So this is from the source lead that I use. Skin whitening was an important symbol of status. Rubbing lead on the skin made it gray and shriveled. They used something called alum, which is aluminum, and they used sulfur. This is from the quote here, so I didn't spell it incorrectly. And a variety of foundation using boiled egg, white, talc, and other materials, and it would glaze the complexion, creating like just wrinkle-free complexion. So I wouldn't try it. This is a picture of a peasant woman, but again, it's painted by someone noble. And I'll find you a picture of a peasant here. I got these coloring books, and they're so cute. Maybe I don't have a picture of peasant. Oh, well, I do have like some facial shots of peasants here. Wow, look at that. But they would wear things like wool, linen, and sheepskin, and they were really only supposed to wear one color. This was painted again by someone upper class, probably, but they definitely didn't have bright as reds as they have. Okay, what sanitation? This is an old meme, but you guys need to resurrect it. What in tarnation? So there's no bath. Well, there were baths, but you just picture you had to bathe in river water, and they would just throw their chamber pots into the river. Like, it's just filthy. So, I mean, it's probably better not to take a bath. Also, the water wasn't warm. Why would you want to jump into a cold thing of water that was... So, the streets, there was no trash man, okay, or lady. There's no trash lady. The streets also were contaminated by the waste, like human waste, when it rained, like dead animals would wash up onto the streets. So that's where the saying, it's raining cats and dogs, literally came from, okay? And so there's no surprise that they had these types of diseases. And luckily, we're all supposed to get a smallpox vaccine. Like, my daughter just had one at 6 months. But things like syphilis, they're still around. Luckily, we have medicines to get rid of it, but it's really bad. That's a quote. It's really bad. Here is a picture of King Henry's toilet. I actually went to his palace, I told you, and I stuck my head in this room because they have a big, stanchion crossing, not allowing the public in, but the room still was stinky. He had this nice velvet toilet. So this is like the best toilet you would ever see in the 1400s or 1500s, okay? And if you were a servant, you would have to, do wiping duty, okay? Because they really just, they don't have, nice toilet paper like we have. And even in some places today, they don't have toilet paper. Do you think they have toilet paper in North Korea? No, they use their excrement to fertilize the field still. So we are so lucky. Understand, you are lucky to have toilet paper. That's a quote. Write that down. And in the morning, okay, this is a rule. If you were a lady, you would walk closer to the houses. Why? Because people were launching their chamber pots out the window to clean it out. You don't want that in your house. And, excrement would fall into the street. So men would be gentlemen and take the outside. Now, if you were a manly man, you would take the outside anyway. So it would be an insult to walk on the outside of the street when another man would walk up. But I guess, they would decide according to rank who would take the outside or who would take the inside. Okay, medical treatments. I told you guys I had these earrings that I wear for parent teacher conferences. I don't believe in this, but one time a parent told me that the earrings were power crystals, and I thought that was so funny that I just wore them anyways. But apparently, they believed in the 1500s that certain things could like cure your mental illness. Like this garnet here could cure mental illness. And there's still people that believe like crystals have healing powers. I don't know about it, but I'd try it. I mean, I need healing. But apparently, a headache could be solved by rose and lavender. An earache could be solved by a roasted onion in your ear. Lung problems could be solved by marijuana. And so they only lived about 25 to 45 years. And because of this, they probably got married at 12, 13. Women, whenever you had your time, you were ready to be married off. And just so you guys know, like mercury, you don't want to put it on your skin. Okay, this thing is a symbol for a barbershop. Why? Because it was a place where you could get bloodlet. So if you were sick, you were ill, they would take the blood out of your arm. Okay, and that's what this symbol means. Today, they do not do that anymore. Do not do that. And they would bloodlet, I guess, back in the ancient Egyptian days even. And you could even, at the barbershop, you could get a tooth taken out. Elizabethan doctors believed that if you were ill, it was because you needed your humors balanced. And fun facts, this is really sad. George Washington died of the bloodletting. This is a plague doctor's outfit. You've probably seen one of these before. And then these are the humors. Sorry, my slideshow got a little messed up, but if you were ill, it's because these things were out of balance. Your humors. Okay, this is Shakespeare theater. It's called the Globe Theater. You're going to read about it in your textbook, and that is going to be, what pages is that? I wrote it down, you guys. I always write these things down. Okay, it's 1022 to 1030. You're going to download it into your drive, and you're going to take notes from 1022 to 1030. But this is the Globe Theater. This is where the action happened, right here in the center of the stage. This is where the balcony scene would be. If you were really poor, you would pay one penny to sit in the pit. Okay? But if you were wealthy, you'd sit up here. It's so funny because at Ruoff, if you want to sit this close, it's like $300, $400 a ticket. But if you were really wealthy, you could pay an extra sum and sit on the stage. So this is the Globe Theater. We know that it was O-shaped because Shakespeare called it lovingly his wooden O. It was this shaped because people would go to plays during the day because they did not have artificial light, so it was a roofless courtyard. The Globe Theater could hold 3,000 people. There were people like named orange wenches that would go around and offer people oranges and everything. They would also eat hazelnuts. That was Elizabethan popcorn. And my works cited page got a little messed up because this is, and so I didn't use Wikipedia. Don't worry. Okay, so you guys are going to present next. But again, you need to take notes on 1022 to 1030 because we are going to definitely have a quiz on all this information. And I'll tell you guys what to write down during the presentations. Thank you for watching.